Let's cut across to Adani and hear what the management has to say about the restructuring. Well, he should start in a few minutes now. Or a few seconds, rather.
I think heading start.
Okay. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure for me to share with you the results for 9 months ended and the quarter ended December, which have been adopted today at the meeting of the Board of Directors. The overall performance, as you would appreciate, is very encouraging, backed by strong growth across our 3 segments of port business, power business, and coal trading and mining business. Let me share with you some of the financial highlights very quickly. On a quarter-to-quarter basis, our consolidated income has registered a 30% growth. EBITDA has seen a growth of 57%, and PAT has seen a huge steep jump of over 500%. For 9 months, on a comparative basis for the previous year to the current year, the consolidated income has registered an increase of 25%. The EBITDA growth is nearly 58%, and PAT growth is close to 300%. Let me share with you some of the volume details which has resulted into this spectacular financial performance by Adani Enterprises Limited. In the 9-month period ended in December, our coal trading volume has registered a growth of 42%. We have done about 44 million tons of coal cargo trading and handling as compared to the previous year 9 months. The port has registered a volume growth of 29% to 108 million tons in comparison to the previous year, where we had done also fairly well. Our power sales have jumped 36% to 39 BUs compared to the 9 months in the ended December 14. In terms of special highlights for the performance, Mundra Port continues to be the largest single commercial port in the country. It handled 84 million tons of cargo in the first 9 months of this fiscal, and the overall growth in Mundra Port has been 13%, whereas the sectoral growth in the country has been about 5% at all the major ports. So that clearly shows that Mundra Port continues to grow despite very large volume base, and a clear leadership position continues to be reinforced. Adani Power has now achieved in this previous 9 months full thermal power generation capacity of 9,240 megawatts, making us the largest private sector power generation player. We have also signed a binding term sheet to acquire 100% stake in Korba West Power Company Limited from Avanta Group. We believe that the coal block auction proceeding as per the reforms initiated by the current government, not only will we get a major boost to our power generation business based on the coal mining, but this will also aid our mining development and operation business, which we have pioneered in this country. On the other note, board has approved a scheme of arrangement which would unlock share valuation for the shareholders of Adani Enterprises Limited. Let me briefly share the details as approved by the board at the same meeting today. Under the scheme of arrangement, The shareholders of Adani Enterprise Limited would directly get to participate now in the ports, power and transmission business. Ports and power being existing listed companies, there is a swap ratio that I am just going to share the details about. The shareholders of AEL will directly get the shares into these two companies. As a very pioneering move, Adani Group would list its 100% Transco transmission company, which has got over 5,000 circuit kilometers of operative transmission assets, making it the first and the only private sector transmission company to be listed, which is what also the board has approved. As per the swap ratio approved by the board, which is subject to all the regulatory clearances and clearances at the shareholders meeting in the due course as per the process, each shareholder would be entitled to receive equity shares of Adani Power, Adani Port and Adani Transmission in the respective ratio as under. 14,123 equity shares of Adani Port would be given away for every 10,000 equity shares of Adani Enterprise held by a shareholder on the record date. Likewise, for every 10,000 equity shares of Adani Enterprise held by a shareholder on the record date, 18,596 equity shares of Power Company will be given, and for one equity share of Adani Enterprise held by a shareholder on the record date, one share of Adani Transmission will be given away. All in all, as we have been able to display, all our sectors, port, power, coal, agri, are continuing to register very encouraging growth. We feel proud to be playing a very meaningful role in building infrastructure and creating energy security for the nation. Thank you very much. Start? Yeah. Namaskar. Adani Enterprises ke.
All right, that's the Adani management explaining or rather offering some very basic details of the share swap that they are going to initiate in order to restructure the group. Varinder has been following the story right from day one, breaking most parts of it, so to speak. What exactly is it that they're attempting to do, Varinder, through the share swap?
Adani Enterprise right now, there are three important businesses or three layers. One is that if you're a shareholder of Adani Enterprise, you have Adani Ports, Adani Power, and the residual business, which
through Adani Enterprise.
Through Adani Enterprise, yeah. And that residual business is, mining and trading, agri, warehouse.
Wilmar, I think.
Wilmar, of course, is one. These are three important components, and the Transco, what they've said right now. Now, importantly, what they've done, that if you're a shareholder of Adani Enterprise, you will get share of Adani Ports
and Adani's
Power. And of course, Adani Transco. But importantly, they haven't mentioned anything about the residual business. We just need to get more info on what happens to the residual business.
So essentially, in exchange of your shares that you hold in Adani Enterprises, this is in exchange.
Yes.
So you're giving up your shares in Adani Enterprise in exchange of shares of Adani Ports and Adani Power, as well as Adani Transco when it gets listed.
You're not giving away those shares, okay? You are holding those shares. See, right now, the current market cap is around 65,000 crore for Adani Enterprise. So you were holding Adani, all these three businesses, what you mentioned, indirectly.
Right.
Now you have an option of owning these companies, Port, Power, Transco, directly.
But you have to give up your Adani Enterprise shares in exchange. You don't get shares free of Port and Power.
When this goes away, you will be held as a shareholder, a minority shareholder in Adani Enterprise with the residual business. The residual business will still be there. The market cap of the entire Adani Enterprise will come down from whatever 65,000 crores to 8,000, 10,000 crores, because that's the residual business of the entity. So you are a shareholder of the entire enterprise, but now you have a clean holding in these three or four different industry entities, which will be there. So what they're trying to do is simplify all these things, whatever the structuring is having. And now, as a shareholder, you have a right, or you have you can directly own these companies.
You have direct exposure to power, to ports, and Transco when it gets listed, if I've understood that correctly.
Exactly. They will list it.
But do you continue to hold any shares in Adani Enterprise?
Yeah, you continue to hold, because that market capital will come down from 65,000 crores to whatever, analysts are estimating that the residual business is around 15%. So that will be the Adani Enterprise, the old Adani Enterprise, which will be there. So whatever happens in the residual business, if there is any
if I had
growth,
100 shares, explain this to me. If I had 100 shares of Adani Enterprise today, what would I get in exchange for those 100 shares? Would I have to give up all 100 shares?
Okay.
How would it work?
If you are having 100 shares, you will get 14.1 of Adani Ports.
Okay.
You will get 18.5 of Adani Power.
Okay.
And one, if you're having 100, then 100 for Transco as well.
100 for Transco as well?
Because he said 1:1, okay? And then, of course, is the residual business, which is there, in which you are a shareholder.
So what will you get of the residual business?
Of the residual business, what you basically get is the mining business.
No. I'm not asking what is the residual business. What percentage of shares? If you had 100 shares of Adani Enterprises, you will have to give them up to get 14.1 shares of the ports business, 18.5 shares of the power business.
There is no giving up of shares. That's what Varinder is trying to say. That it's been clearly mentioned that there'll be a fresh issue of shares. So what you basically do is the value of 100 shares gets split up into ports plus power, which you anyway were holding indirectly. Now you continue to hold it directly, so you hold those 100 shares as
why is he using the
B
phrase
plus C?
swap ratio? Why is he using the phrase swap ratio? You swap only when you're giving something in exchange for taking away something. So
I'm, in the press release, it's clearly mentioned it's a fresh issue of shares. So what our understanding is, in the residual business, you'll be left with ports, which you now directly own, plus power, plus Transco, which is new. Anyway, it's a very small business. In the target price of most of the analysts, it's just about 4 rupees or so, not more than that. And the balance business is the mining business.
Are we absolutely clear about this, that there is no swap involved in this process? Of course, these companies, what you may be confusing is that power and ports will be issuing new shares. So that's where the fresh issue of shares comes in, because how else are they going to offer shares to Adani Enterprise shareholders in exchange of the Adani Enterprise shares? But the point is that there would be a swap here. Otherwise, why would he call it a swap ratio? You're giving up Adani Enterprise shares for power or port shares, right?
I agree with you on that. But, then the only thing that comes up is then you're not valuing the residual business at anything.
That's exactly what I'm asking.
Then you're technically taking
the residual business is the
then you're taking away the ports plus power plus Transco plus the X business, which is the coal mining and agro, for literally nothing, which I would assume is not wrong. See, anyway, with the way, had it been a swap, if the shares would have gone back to the promoter, he would have become the majority shareholder. He already owns 75% in Adani Enterprises. It would have been a scheme of arrangement where we would have seen something that happened in the case of Wipro Consumer Enterprise, where that company no longer exists as a public listed entity on the exchange.
So you are saying that he's attempting to delist this through this scheme of restructuring?
So now that is the question that the market is asking. It could be a precursor to delisting eventually. See, earlier what would have happened is, had he announced a delisting, then in that case 67,000 crores would be the market cap. The premium on 67,000 crores would be huge.
That's all fine. Pragya, I'm trying to understand, what is he doing right now? If he's saying it's a share swap, that means you're giving up your Adani Enterprise shares in exchange for the shares that you're getting. It's as simple as that. And the shares that you're getting are freshly issued shares by the companies who are giving them. It's as simple as that. So for 100 shares of Adani Enterprise, you're getting 14.1 shares of ports, 18.5 shares of power business, 100 shares of the Transco business, and maybe some shares of the residual business that is left behind in Adani Enterprises.
They're actually silent on that. They haven't spoken anything on the residual business in the press release up until now. In the
what is the value of the residual business? Have you guys done a sum of parts work?
Would be roughly about 65 to 70 rupees.
10-15% is what you're saying. Okay.
Under that.
Right. That's what we know of
They
this
are clearly saying that they'll be issuing new equity shares of, to the equity shareholders of Adani Enterprise. They're clearly seeing that.
Well, of course, the companies involved will have to issue new shares, Varinder, right? Isn't that how it works? Where will the companies have their own shares otherwise? So Power will have to issue new shares in a swap.
But then essentially what we're saying is that the balance business will not exist because of this swap arrangement. Then what will happen is the promoters will end up holding more than 75% in the Adani Enterprises.
That's the question I'm asking. Are they attempting to take Adani Enterprises private?
The press release, at least for now, is silent on that. So we would need more clarity from the management on that front. It clearly says issue of new equity shares, so we have to go by the fact that they're splitting the share up into 4 parts.
All right, guys, let's find out a little bit more about this. See if you can get the management online. We've got to continue with earnings season.